Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Esther Herlock and I would like to thank you for joining me today. As stakeholders in the community, I am looking forward to discussing HPV-associated cancers with you and the need for a continued increase in vaccinations for HPV in Georgia. Together, I believe we can work towards greater prevention. So what is the big deal with HPV anyways? It is actually the most common sexually transmitted infection in the United States. In fact, over 40 distinct types can infect the genital tract. It is important to note that most HPV infections are asymptomatic and they clear up spontaneously. However, persistent infections are the ones we are worried about as they can progress to cancer. HPV causes most cervical cancers, cancers of the vagina, vulva, penis, anus, and oropharynx. I would like to quickly give some insight into the current rates for HPV in the United States, and then specifically provide data for Georgia in the following slide. Based on 2011 to 2015 data, about 42,700 new cases of HPV-associated cancers occurred in the U.S. each year. 24,400 of those were among women, while 18,300 of those were among men. Data shows that cervical cancer is the most common among women, while oropharyngeal cancers are the most common among men. For those who may be unfamiliar, oropharyngeal cancers are located in the back of the throat and include the base of the tongue and tonsils. Overall, HPV is thought to be responsible for more than 90% of anal and cervical cancers, about 70% of vaginal and vulval cancers, and more than 60% of penile cancers. An interesting discovery is that oropharyngeal cancers are not only caused by tobacco and alcohol as previously believed. In fact, 70% of oropharynx cancers are thought to be linked to HPV. Now let's take a look at the data currently available for Georgia. According to the 2008 to 2012 cancer registry data, the rate of incidence of HPV-associated cancers per 100,000 was 12.6. Looking individually, the female incidence was higher at 14.3, while male incidence was 10.7. The highest type of HPV-associated cancer among females was cervical cancer with a rate of 7.7, while the highest type among males was oropharyngeal with a rate of 8.3. This data is fairly consistent with what was seen overall in the United States. So this leads us to ask, why the push to promote HPV vaccinations in Georgia? Now, if you'll take a look at this map of the United States, we can see by color the states in blue which have the highest incidence rates across the nation. Georgia is one of them. More recent data from 2011 to 2015 shows that the incidence rate in HPV-associated cancers in Georgia is actually 13.14 per 100,000. In looking at the current vaccination coverage in the U.S., 2017 data shows that roughly half of the adolescents were up to date on the HPV vaccine, and 66% of adolescents received the first dose to start the vaccine series. Many adolescents have not received all the recommended doses, and about half have not completed the HPV vaccine series. Vaccine receival is also disproportionate in rural areas. Data shows the number of adolescents who received the first dose of the HPV vaccine was 11 percentage points lower in comparison to urban areas. So what's the coverage like in Georgia, you may be wondering? Currently, HPV vaccinations are being offered at a similar rate for both male and females, which is great considering females were the initial target population. It's interesting to see that as of 2017, female up-to-date vaccines was 45%, while male up-to-date vaccines was higher at 46.4%. This data shows that Georgia is below the national average of vaccine coverage, but it also highlights the need for a continued push for increased vaccination among females, since they experience a higher rate of HPV-associated cancer incidence. You may be asking yourself, what can I do as a stakeholder? First and foremost, you can take action. 4 tips for how to boost vaccination efforts in Georgia include knowing the vaccination coverage rates and how you are doing within your department or medical practices in comparison to the state average. You can share information about your rates with office staff and colleagues to spread awareness and gain interest in the prevention effort. You can identify ways to boost HPV vaccination rates and share what is working with other immunization providers in your community. And finally, you can find strategies to increase adolescent vaccination rates in the underserved rural communities. So where do you fit into the grand scheme of things? What you notice in this diagram is that the target population for vaccination coverage in Georgia are adolescents aged 13 to 17. Everyone here today, along with all these entities, play a role in increasing vaccination efforts and preventing HPV-associated cancers among this population. In summary, I would like to remind you the rates are higher among females than males in Georgia. Also, most recent data shows that the previous 12.6 rate has increased to 13.14. This upward trend is of great concern and shows the need for improved vaccination. For those who are unfamiliar, there are 2 types of vaccine approved by the FDA called Gardasil and Cervarix, and both involve 3 doses of shots. I would like to point out that the Healthy People 2020 goal for HPV vaccinations is 80%. We can all play a role in getting closer to this goal. So what are our next steps? How do we spread awareness and improve vaccination coverage? Please remember that word of mouth alone can have a significant impact. In order to improve on the data shown in years to come, we can continue campaigning through coalitions and programs, for example. We can distribute posters and brochures in more than one language, put out TV commercials, public service announcements, and radio advertisements. And we can also make sure there is training available for all healthcare workers to encourage vaccinations when talking to parents and teens. I hope this has been informative to you all, and if anything has inspired and motivated you to be involved. I would like to personally thank you for your efforts and encourage you to keep fighting the good fight. Thank you very much.